The politicians in Washington have already bankrupted the nation. We're in more debt than we will ever be able to repay. More debt, in fact, than any nation in the history of the world, and yet still we're giving untold billions to Ukraine in a war that they will not win. We open up money to our enemy Iran and disastrously pull out of Afghanistan, creating the biggest powder keg the Middle East has seen in decades, all while we open our border to any terrorist or America hater that might want to come in and hang out, as well as undermine our elections to boot. Does that sound like a formula for success or anything good to you? And what about that situation in the Middle East? It appears that weakness in the White House could lead us into yet another avoidable war, this time with Iran, or is it by design? When you look at this, you have to ask, is it by design? All really strange, because Joe Biden, you know, the one that Democrats keep bragging is such an expert on world affairs and foreign policy, he has some very important thoughts about Iran and the possibility of U.S. wars with Tehran. And he made some comments when he was still running for president back in 2020 that are interesting, to say the least. Here he is.
The world has changed because of what Trump has done. And the American people, including independents and some Republicans, know how bad he is, know how much he's misrepresented, know how he's getting close to getting us in a war. I said, as the walls close in on this man, I'm worried he's going to get us to war in Iran. Unfortunately, I may have been right. The fact of the matter is there's a lot at stake in this election.
You can see how much the main message has deteriorated and how much the man himself has deteriorated. In and of itself, that's scary. But what's also scary is how wrong he always is. That's why Robert Gates says he's always wrong about foreign policy. Yeah, Donald Trump would get us into a war with Iran. That's what he said. And that's why Robert Gates, the Secretary of Defense under Barack Obama, was very clear when he explained Joe Biden wrong on everything. Every position he took for more than 40 years. His track record has not improved with his declining mental abilities. So bad this is. I want you to hear this again. Here he is saying it's Donald Trump that will get us into a war with Iran. Here it is.
The world has changed because of what Trump has done. And the American people, including independents and some Republicans, know how bad he is, know how much he's misrepresented, know how he's getting close to getting us in a war. I said, as the walls close in on this man, I'm worried he's going to get us to war in Iran. Unfortunately, I may have been right. The fact of the matter is there's a lot at stake in this election.
No, Joe. As usual, you were wrong. You got us into the war with Iran. Accidentally? By design? You can tell us as soon as it gets started, because it will. And as you know, the push for war is strong on Capitol Hill. And as much as I despise the Iranian Ayatollah and the regime in Tehran, I would proceed with a lot more caution than some that are calling for an immediate and total overwhelming attack. Some you wouldn't expect to hear from even at this time, including Vice President Mike Pence, who had this to say.
We know who holds Hamas's leash. We know who holds Hezbollah's leash. I mean, nothing happens in that part of the world by terrorists that doesn't ultimately go back to Tehran. But I do want to say this, as unspeakable as those events were, we're now talking about American lives lost at the hands of Iranian proxies. There has to be an overwhelming response to that, not a pinprick response. My hope is that what President Biden has approved here is not striking more militia bases as they've done in the past in Syria or in Iraq, but actually to take this fight directly to Iranian forces. And frankly, I think the time has come for them to strike oil or military infrastructure in Iran.
I'm still not sure why someone felt compelled to pull out Mike Pence and dust him off, but there he is. And the warmongers in the military-industrial complex cheering his comments for sure. And believe me, he's not alone. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Senator Tom Cotton also among those calling for a massive response to Iran's attacks. Here they are.
It's pretty clear that the Biden administration's policies have resulted in a huge conflagration. I hear people talking about whether we're going to end up at war with Iran. I can assure you the Iranians are at war with the United States today. They've now killed American servicemen. These three certainly in these past days.
And so my guess is you agree with him. I've laid out the scenarios. Which option do we choose?
Bill, you laid out 4 options for how we could retaliate against Iran. I'd add a 5th, which is all of the above. There has to be devastating military retaliation for the targeting of American troops in Jordan, a friendly nation, across international borders, leaving 3 dead Americans and more than 36 wounded. And some of those, Bill, are in grave, critical condition as well. This is not an anomaly for Iran. This is what they've been doing for 45 years, but they have amped it up under Joe Biden and before him Barack Obama, because the Obama-Biden foreign policy has been one of appeasement and conciliation. We have to totally reverse that policy, starting with retaliatory strikes right now and continuing beyond that to ensure that we're no longer trying to bribe the Ayatollahs with billions of dollars. We're not looking the other way whenever they cheat on sanctions, and we're certainly not going to tolerate even the slightest provocation against our troops in the Middle East. Anything else will simply invite more attacks.
Yeah, well, where is Joe Biden in all of this? We know where they stand. They've made it pretty clear they want war, all-out war, and they want it now. But where is Joe Biden? Well, it seems he has not been told what he's supposed to think yet. Joe, what's your opinion? Here he is.
I do hold them responsible in the sense that they're supplying the weapons to the people who did it. We'll have that
discussion. We'll have a discussion after we have some cookies and milk. Thank you, Joey. Can we get him back to the copter now? Come on, get him away from the microphones. For those that have actually worn the uniform and fought in the wars of the last 25 years, they are a bit more cautious. Still feels like a war with Iran is coming. In fact, it feels inevitable and sadly unavoidable. I want you to think about that when you remember the pallet loads of cash delivered by Barack Obama in the middle of the night and the billions of dollars just recently unfrozen by the Biden administration for Iran's use.